Now, our fifth professor, I want to give a very, very special welcome now, because Antonio García, it's his birthday today, and still he joined us to share his knowledge. So happy birthday from all of us here.
Thank you.
And I'm sure from the audience as well. Maybe, we'll see that in the chat in a minute. Now,
thank you.
You came from and after some years in the industry, right? I mean, we've heard a lot of examples now from people who pursued the academic career. You came from the industry and returned to the world of science, you told me. And even as far as from the orbit, we don't just see that in your background, but you are a professor of mechanical engineering, and you're working to improve the performance of satellites. So this really shows the broadness of the fields, research fields that are offered at universities of applied sciences. So, and you collaborate closely with companies. Actually, if I remember rightly from when we talked before, this was kind of a prerequisite of your university. They asked you to actually, bring your working. Can you tell us what that's about?
Of course. So I exactly. So that was the goal. More or less, it was not a prerequisite, but it was also the goal of the university, that when I joined, I came from a company in Bremen called OHB. That's a satellite manufacturer, so a system level company. They deliver the finished satellites, so to say, to the ESA or DLR or any other agency in Europe. And the goal was more or less to get someone for this position from industry. I mean, that's the general goal of the University of Applied Sciences, and that's something that is unique. So that's something that I really like. But then also when I joined, when we were negotiating, let's say in the final, I mean, we heard about this 2 years long process. So when we were negotiating, one of the assets that the university wanted to have with me, and that I also offered, was that I brought the experience from a local company, rather large. In Bremen, we have Airbus and we have OHB, which are the 2 of 3 satellite manufacturers in Europe. So it was quite good that I was inside that industry and that I could bring it into the university. And then as you said, I come from the mechanical engineering faculty. There inside, we have a group of, let's say, aerospace technologies. We have an institute that it's called Institute for Aerospace Technologies. And we actually gather not only people from the mechanical faculty, but also people from the electronics and informatics faculty, because a satellite, when you want to have a technical system, it's not only about mechanical engineering or electrical engineering, it's more like a systems engineering global approach. So we try to get together and then give the students the opportunities to work on their own projects, on their own satellite projects, and also plane projects. We are placed at the airport, let's say the airport city in Bremen, which is a very small airport, and you have a lot of buildings around it. You have Airbus around the airport, and you have also Ariane Group and MT Aerospace. So we're locally, even inside Bremen, we are locally collaborating with them, because we see the buildings from our windows, so to say. So when we make an excursion, exactly, when we want to visit Airbus, we walk 500 meters and we're there.
Right. So you're very much rooted on the ground as well as, in the orbit.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but having said that, I mean, describing your background, I'm sure you wouldn't have the slightest problem getting a real great job in the industry where you came from, right?
Yes, exactly.
So why do you, I mean, how would you persuade someone to make the same transition you did? Yeah, I mean, why do you consider this professorship you have or took a unique opportunity someone else should also try out?
Yes, well, the thing is that this is something that I didn't know so much that it existed. So at the beginning of my career path, I was a scientist. I was also at the Max Planck Society, as Professor Munz said at the beginning. I did my PhD there in some satellite missions and so on. And then I changed to the industry, because I always like to be like in the interface between two fields. So I was working at the university, but I was testing satellite products in our lab at the Max Planck Society. So while testing with the industry, I saw that I liked that a lot. So I jumped over the fence. And typically in a conventional scientific career path, that's over for your career, for your scientific career path. If you have gone to industry, that's it. That was it with you as a scientist. But then I discovered this opportunity that it's really unique in Germany, that they want people at the university with the industrial experience. And I think that's a great asset. I think that also the president of the university in Berlin said it. That's something that is quite unique in Germany. They want you to teach your industrial experience to the students that want to work in that kind of industry. And I thought that was also very interesting. That's something that has been interesting for me, to work between two fields. And I saw the opportunity to come back to do something where I can teach and where I can do my own research. One thing that I would also say is, first, I consider it to be really useful. And that differentiates, for example, Germany from Spain. In Spain, we don't have this kind of universities. And I don't think they exist in many other countries. So that's something that was new to me. So it sounded very attractive. And second is, you have a lot of freedom. You have much more freedom. As you said, I did have a great job at OHB. I was the technical leader of a scientific satellite called Plato. I was the lead system engineer for a satellite that discovered exoplanets and so on. But in the end, you end up working for projects that are a couple of $100 million worth. And it's a lot of responsibility. And in the end, it's industrial work. So your freedom, your capability to define the project on which you are working is relatively limited. While you work on something great, you cannot really design it because it's huge. So you can design a smaller thing. At the university, I really have my own research budget. I still communicate a lot with OHB, so I can influence some satellite projects or small research or technology development projects. I also collaborate with Airbus. We have a module called Airbus Café, where the students get to set up their own projects and present them to the Airbus management, and they get feedback, for example, for more sustainable planes or more sustainable satellite projects. But in the end, it's the freedom that I like. I have my own budget, and I get to do really my own ideas. Where as an engineer in a company, you get to just build a product that someone has came up with. And it's not, in the end, it's not really what you came up with. You develop, you engineer something, but in the end, the only place where you can really say, okay, I came up with that idea that we are building now, it's a university.
You told me also that it's not just that the professors have, a double qualification, but the students as well. Tell me about your students, how you teach, and
yes,
That's
the second part that I liked a lot. At the beginning, I was a little bit skeptical about what kind of students are there in this University of Applied Sciences. I have to say, I agree with the whole development of the University of Applied Sciences that we have been talking about before. Because in the general mindset of also the German population, the students of the University of Applied Sciences are like, second best, let's say. They are not so good as the classical university. But then I entered and I realized this kind of students that want to go for the applied thing, which is also my thing, they really know what they're doing. So that's, they really are, sometimes they have been working with planes for 5 years. They have been like making the maintenance or setting or the qualification checks or the quality assurance of a wing, of a winglet. And then they say, I would really know more. I would really like to know more about the design and the properties, the mechanical properties or dynamic while flying about this plane. So I'm going to enter the university. And these are people that are very familiar with what they are studying, but they want to get to the next level. And they really enrich the classroom. I had, for example, one lecture where we do flight mechanics for planes. where pilots take place. We have a dual, which is also a very interesting thing of this applied University of Applied Sciences. We have a dual career where we teach pilots, where we give them a bachelor in engineering, which is something very attractive for a pilot. So I was teaching flying mechanics, and we were in the chapter of the starting the plane. Let's say calculate how much landing roll you need. Does it work? Does it not work? What is the final speed? What is the critical speed when you need to stop the plane, or when you really have to take off? And the guy said, "Okay, I work at Airbus as a pilot, and I can show you a start." So he really simulated. We were also having the lecture via Zoom. I entered in the Corona phase, so well, I made the best out of it. And he really made a simulation for a start. He switched on the simulator. We were all the classroom in a plane, in an Airbus 320 with her denomination in the Bremen airport. So he was having the weather information, the time, the state of the road, and so on. And he did the whole checks with the things that we had just calculated. So the whole speed, when you will have to switch off the plane, what's the critical, all that we had seen as in theory, he put it in practice while doing all the checks before the startup. And that's something that you can only get in this kind of universities. Or if I teach to mechanical engineering students, they really know the materials much better than me. In the end, I am a physicist. My background is I studied physics, and I did some systems engineering at the industry. But for the mechanical engineers, they really know their stuff. If you talk about metals, if you talk about aluminum, for them it's not aluminum or titanium. It's titanium 4Al6 and vanadium 6. They know their exact parts. And for them, it's a whole new material. And that's something intrinsic to them. They have done their CAD courses. They know much better what they're talking about, because they have been working, they have been manufacturing parts before they enter the study. So they are really motivated, or they run around, the aerospace technology guys, they run around with the SpaceX hoods and so on, and the car. So they really love what they're studying. And that's something that I got as a surprise. My expectations were not so high, but in the end, it's one of my motivation sources, let's say, in the day-to-day business.
So I'm very glad you found your calling too, and your prejudices could be wiped away.